All right, welcome back to the Being Christ podcast with Dijon and Jade. What we were exploring in the last episode was how to integrate the energies of Christ consciousness in our day-to-day experience. And we're trying to break it down in a practical way so it doesn't seem like some far off thing. And the number one tool I would say is allowing the breath to purify your inner being. So when we're activated, you have a lot of energy moving in your system. And of all the things that we take in, water, food, breath is actually the most important because prana and life force energy travels on the breath. So if you notice when people are anxious, that corresponds to shallow breathing, right? So people hyperventilate, like when they're freaked out or something like that. And the way you calm down and regulate your nervous system is by breathing deeply and allowing the oxygen and the prana to fully make its way through your system. When we're in fight or flight mode, I think our mind really wants to figure something out or to make somebody wrong or to go into some story about what's happening. But if you're operating from the truth, which is that all that really exists is love, then you know that those are just stories that the ego is projecting for some attempt at projection, which actually doesn't work. I've done the projecting outwards for a long time, and it just creates disharmony in relationships and dysregulation in your system. I think the number one thing that I've been able to do is to stop telling stories and to more just focus on bringing my attention back to how my body feels. So if I'm feeling tension in my chest, then I just feel the tension in my chest. If I'm feeling constriction in my stomach, then I just feel the constriction in my stomach. And then I slowly and deliberately breathe into the places where I feel constriction and contraction and just stay with that process. And the breath is actually the healer that allows those energetic knots to be cleansed and massaged out. It's almost like when you scrape your knee, you put the rubbing alcohol on it and it kind of burns. It can be like that when you're doing breath work. Like you can breathe into those places either with just deliberate breathing or with specific breath work practices that I learned in Kundalini or something like that. But either way, it's inner purification and healing just through the breath. Maybe we'll just take like 3 deep breaths right now, just to enjoy the cleansing so that we can breathe together. You down for that, Jade?
Always.
All right, let's do it. Just sit with your spine straight. It doesn't have to be unnaturally erect, but just so that there's a clear way for all your chakras to have the energy move through them. Then just take a deep inhale through your nose. Hold at the top for 1 second. Exhale through the mouth. 2 more like that. Inhale slowly through the nose. Exhale. Last one. Inhale through the nose. Exhale. So even in those short 3 deep breaths, I definitely feel more calm now. How about you?
I feel more calm,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I could lay down.
So it's a way to activate your parasympathetic nervous system and just down-regulate your body and de-stress. So instead of trying to figure it out in the mind, allow yourself to experience it in the body.
Yeah. The mind is really extraordinary at using logic to think through things, to fix things. And this is a really beautiful service that we have inside of ourselves. It is very useful to have the mind as a servant for when we need to fix things or analyze things. But if we're using the mind too much, then we're kind of looking at every problem like it's a nail that needs to be hit, and that's certainly not the case. And, I mentioned in the last podcast that our connection to the present moment is really our connection to God. Or maybe it was 2 podcasts ago, but this concept that God really only exists in the present moment and our body only exists in the present moment. The mind can project into the future, it can ruminate in the past, it can think about something that is not physically in your presence. The mind is brilliant in those ways. And the present moment is God. Your connection to God in the present moment is through the vessel of your body. And the way we connect back to our body is through the breath. Like Dijon just said, the breath is, it's so profoundly important for many reasons. And I actually had a huge breakthrough about breath earlier this year while I was at a combo retreat, and my breathing pattern got super fucked up, guys, from living in a dysregulated nervous system for over 15 years. And I was sitting in this combo retreat, and it became clear to me because I used to have OCD, and one of the patterns that was very prevalent for me was this fear of dark energies or dark entities being around me. And I realized in this breakthrough moment that I had learned to stop breathing fully because I had this unconscious fear that if I took in a full breath, I would breathe in this darkness or these dark entities, and then they would be inside of me. And once I realized that it became so clear that that was the darkness winning because it stole my breath away. I wasn't breathing fully because of fear. And that's what this work is recognizing that the fear is really the thing that's blocking you. Not the thing that you're actually afraid of most of the time, but the fear itself. I realized that it had caused this deep disconnection in my body from feeling safe in the presence of God. Because God is the present moment, and our breath is what allows us to feel safe and present in the present moment. And we're breathing in air. Air is one of the least dense elements, and in that way it's closest to spirit, it's closest to the Father, the masculine face of God. And so in that way I was also disconnected from the Father and disconnected from the masculine energy within myself. And so it was a resurrection of learning how to breathe my body. Again, that was such a profound rite of passage that I accredit to the much deeper sense of well-being that I have in my life now. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. The breath is where it's at.
Yeah, and I love the way you said breathe my body. And I think of it as spirit breathing us because spirit is breathing life into us. And when spirit stops breathing life into us, then our body is inanimate. And some people don't know how to breathe because we were never taught. I didn't really know how to properly breathe to energize my system until I started studying breath. And usually, when you ask somebody to take a breath, they breathe from their chest. But that's not getting into the gut and the diaphragm and where all those nerve endings are. So when we breathe, the belly should be going out. Like if you think about your belly and then as like a bag, and then like your esophagus as like a tube, God is basically giving us mouth to mouth and blowing air into our tube that expands the bag. So the inhale is God, mouth to mouth, and then we're pushing it out, right? And I've even been practicing that breathing technique when I've been exercising recently. And I feel so energized and stronger because I'm relying on the life force to do the work instead of my muscles. The life force animates my muscles. But when I focus on breathing, it just feels easier. So I invite you to try that, just like when you're doing a squat or you're doing a push up or whatever it is, like focus on your diaphragmatic breathing more than anything else and see how that changes the game.
Yeah, certainly. And I picked up a beautiful code from my dear brother Pasha. His work is just blowing my mind right now. He does like sensory mechanics and human design work. And I was trying to do that diaphragmatic breathing for a long time, but I kept trying to like push my belly out. And then I would feel kind of like distended and bloated and uncomfortable and I wasn't quite getting it. And then Pasha helped illuminate for me that it's almost more helpful to think of the diaphragm going down than out. If you think of the diaphragm going down, it'll also go out, but it helps with those mechanics. But I was experiencing the same thing when you were talking about imagine the breath of life coming in, because if it's coming down from the esophagus, then the diaphragm's naturally going to go down because it's pushing the pressure gradient down instead of just out. And it's not about pushing the diaphragm in any direction, but relaxing it almost like a vacuum to suck in that breath of life.
I love that. It's about going deeper, allowing the breath deeper. That's beautiful. I can feel the difference. I just took a breath in that way when you said it, and I can feel it even going deeper into my vessel, which I think is the whole point.
Totally. Totally. We're here for the breath codes. If any of you are hearing this and you're like, "Yo, I got some sick breath codes." We're all ears on that. We're here to architect the breath in the best way for sure.
Yeah, and if you ever want to join us for some breathwork sessions, we got that in our circle community. So I'll leave the link for that. But another way we love to be present and be embodied and move trauma is movement, right? It can be yoga, it can be CrossFit, it can be dancing, stretching. Jade and I both love to dance, like sometimes you just got to get in your body and like move the energy out. And animals intuitively know that, right? Like if they had a bad experience, they'll go and shake that shit out. But humans really will like hold on to things, and then that manifests as dis-ease at some point. So just put on your favorite tune, go in a different environment. Maybe you go outside and get fresh air with your headphones and just like work it out, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly it. At the end of the day, the body is a very intelligent, energetic processing machine. At the cellular level, we have ATP, adenosine triphosphate, baby, and then we cleave off those phosphates, and that creates energy. Everything is about this conversion of energy at the cellular level, but as below, so above as well. And so that's emotions. Emotions are just energy in motion through the body, and we get to move that emotion with our breath, with sound, and with movement. That's why little kids, they're running, they're laughing, they're rolling around in the dirt because there are no inhibitions in the psyche telling them that they need to sit down, be quiet, and pay attention. And so they're naturally just moving all of this energy through their body. And as adults, there's a certain level of conforming and going to work and sitting still and needing to get things done, of course. And because of that, we get to be even more intentional about creating the spaces and taking the time to dance, to move. And that's one thing that Dejan and I are always doing, especially when we're together. I'll be kind of getting like hunched into the zone in my work, and he can sense my energy is like kind of contracting, and he just comes over and hands me a set of wireless headphones, puts on some music, I put them on, I'm like, oh,
That's my
thank God, thank you.
connected dance parties out in nature, outside to get new stimulation, to get fresh air, to get new frequency. It's like it's such a common thing to be sedentary. It's a beautiful thing to be able to do so much with our phone and laptop, but we can definitely get sucked into that world and forget about the world out here, you know? So daily dance breaks are a must.
Yeah, that's it. Daily dance breaks and Jesus. Honestly, if you can put it on my tombstone,
Yeah.
those are the codes.
All right, so should we round it out with one more? Do you have anything else that helps you get into your body and be present?
Honestly, breath, and dance parties. Death is dance and breath put together. That's why that came out. That's really funny.
Hmm.
Breath and dance are really the biggest ones for me.
Hmm.
And I think the last one that I'll loop in, which is something that you already mentioned earlier, is when you're feeling that contraction in your body or a tension, is just laying down and breathing into it. Just being present for the somatic experience of it, because the body is very intelligent. The body is always trying to work toward the most optimal state of health. And we inhibit that healing process when the mind is trying to create all of these narratives and fix it all of the time. Like, trust your body. Trust your girl. She knows what's up. She knows what she's doing. And so it's actually the greatest service to her if you just sit down and shut the fuck up and breathe into it and just be present and loving for that process. And so that's a big one for me as well, is just present somatic sensing.
100%. And that means we lean in to the sensation, right? And that's kind of a theme throughout life is the healing comes when you lean in. It can be easy to avoid difficult conversations or difficult sensations within, but it's just energy in motion. So when we meet the energy and allow it to disperse, it can be released without becoming compacted in our tube. As long as I numbed and avoided, I would hope that I would be able to save someone else some time in that process by just leaning in and being curious being curious about what the emotion may be trying to communicate to you, or what a reflection that you're experiencing relationally may be trying to communicate to you. And that's the way to level up quickly, because this is a holographic experience. We'll go deeper into what that means, me saying it's a holographic experience, but basically you're not perceiving the world as it is, you're perceiving the world as you are. So until you learn how to cultivate the reflections you want to see by your own state of being, you're always going to feel like a victim to your reality. So that'll be a deeper dive on a later episode, but these are some of the codes we have for being present. So thank you for joining us again. You can check out Jade's work with her website, Jade Michael Coaching, or one of her programs, Neuro Sovereignty. You can connect with me through Dharma Glow, and I'll put all the links to everywhere you can tap in with us below. But thanks again for being here, and we'll catch you soon.
And then if you're feeling very inspired by this Christ wave, on Sundays we meet to study what it means to be Christ through the lens of the way of the heart. So that's a great way to deepen with both of us as well.
Ashe.
All right. Peace and blessings.
Peace and love.